Welcome to the Short Circuit. I'm your host, Darryl Willis, Corporate Vice President of Energy and Resources at Microsoft. And I'm excited to have you join me as we dive into critical challenges surrounding the energy transition. In today's episode, I'm really excited to feature another innovative Climatetech startup from underrepresented founders and CEOs. And with that, I'd like to welcome Donnel Baird, founder of BlocPower. Thank you for joining us, Donnel. And it was great to see you at Serial Week and hear your conversation, your pitch, your presentation at Serial Week. And I'm looking forward to talking to you today. And before we get into a discussion about your company, I'd like you to share a few perspectives on your background, who you are, what you're doing, and what sparked your interest in climate technology.
Well, I'm so excited to be here. I really enjoyed meeting you in person down in Houston, and I'm glad to talk with you today. I've been following your work in this podcast, and it's really exciting to talk a little bit about what we're doing. I grew up in Brooklyn, in Bed-Stuy, which is a pretty popular neighborhood now, but was pretty rough when I was growing up. And it's in the middle of Brooklyn. There were lots of low-income and immigrant families in that neighborhood. And it turns out that most of us didn't have functioning heating systems in our homes. And so when it got cold during the winter in Brooklyn, we all just heat our apartment buildings by turning on our oven and opening up the oven door and then opening up the window to the apartment to release the carbon monoxide, fumes so that we didn't suffocate. And it wasn't just my family that did that. Turns out that lots of my friends also did the same thing. And so I share that to say, it was pretty early on that I learned about the relationship between climate and weather and neglected energy systems and health, right? That those three things could combine to be a deadly combination. And as I got older, started to understand, oh, wait a second, well, this is a market opportunity. There's a huge problem here with neglected energy systems and health. And maybe there's some job creation opportunities here if we can focus on this.
Fantastic. When you were talking about those cold mornings, it brought back memories for me, Donnel. I remember even down in Louisiana, where I grew up, on those very cold mornings, my mom opening up the oven door to warm up the kitchen in the middle of the house, and then cracking the window to let the fumes out. So that brings back quite a lot of memories from my childhood. Can you tell us a little bit more about your solution around decarbonizing buildings for cities and what you're focused on there and why?
So I'm a huge believer that the climate science says that we have to make rapid interventions at a massive scale in order to reduce emissions in time to make sure that our children and grandchildren, but even at the end of our lives, aren't mired in the climate crisis. I was in Palm Springs 2 days ago. It was 109 degrees outside. And, I was looking at some folks who were homeless and they were trying to sit in the shade. And I was like, man, this is a really dire situation to be outside at noon and it's 109 degrees with no place to go for shelter and some air conditioning. So anyway, I think the climate crisis is here. I think it's accelerating. I think we need to make dramatic changes. And our theory of the case is we need to simply put, and it's easier said than done, but we need to decarbonize an entire American city. As a matter of fact, we need to decarbonize 3 of them so that it doesn't look like a fluke or that we got lucky. And we need to do that by the year 2030. And after we accomplish that, after we decarbonize all of the buildings and all of the vehicles in a whole U.S. city, or 3, we will open source and share all of the mechanical engineering and electrical engineering and software and the AI models and the project finance models that we build in order to accomplish greening and decarbonizing a whole city. We're going to share that so that thousands of other U.S. cities and cities around the world can follow our lessons learned and best practices and start to green their own cities. So starting in 2031, you'll have a global community of several thousand cities that are following our playbook, if you will, as to how to green a city. So how do you green a city, right? How do you actually do that instead of just talking about it? We think that you can what we do is we go building to building and we remove all of the fossil fuel equipment for heating, for cooking, for hot water. Those gas ovens that your mom and my mom used to heat up our homes, they run on gas. They burn gas for cooking. Um, the hot water systems that we have in many of our homes burn gas. In New York, Darryl, we still have 10,000 buildings that burn oil every
Mhm.
day to produce
Wow.
hot water and heat during the winter. So an oil truck will literally pull up and pump oil into the boiler in the basement, and you'll burn that oil to heat up hot water to make steam and produce heat and produce hot water for showers. So, when you take a step back, we're literally burning fossil fuels, dead dinosaurs in our homes in order to provide the power for cooking and cleaning and showering. And so and heating and air conditioning. And so what we want to do is we want to remove all of those fossil fuel devices and equipment in the same way that the electric vehicle industry has removed fossil fuel engines from vehicles and replaced it with smart, modern, all electric equipment. We want to replace all of the fossil fuel equipment in your home with smart, modern, all electric equipment. And so that technology exists today. And so we're going to go building to building and rip out that fossil fuel equipment, replace it with all electric equipment. And then on our way out, we're going to put solar panels on the roof and electric vehicle charging in the garage for you to have green transportation as well. So there's several American cities that have passed legislation mandating that they be net zero and carbon free by the year 2030. There's a lot more that's said by 2040 and 2050, but we're partnering with some of them that are focused on going all green and net zero by 2030 and going building to building and doing this work.
Wow. I mean, just amazing and ambitious and impactful. And for me, it's just a privilege to know what you guys are up to and what you're doing. And I have no doubt that you'll be successful. I'd like to shift the conversation a little bit because we were recently looking at a study from McKinsey, and it said that Black and Latino founders receive less than 1% of the venture capital funding that's out there available. And Microsoft, we have our climate investment fund, which is also invested in your firm. And because we're all interested, and as much as we're interested in a clean and just energy transition, it's got to be equitable and available to every community on the planet. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what it's like for you. You and I happen to look exactly alike in terms of our complexion. So as a Black man of color, a man of color, what is it like being a technology startup founder? And what are some of the biggest challenges you faced? And what are the things that are helping you most on this journey?
Well, Darryl, I mean, I'm sure that some of the challenges and opportunities that you've faced and overcome in your journey to be an executive as influential as you are inside Microsoft and inside the whole world of technology as a global industry, that you've run into many of the challenges and have learned how to kind of help other people engage with you based on your ideas and what you bring to the table and not just who you are or what their perceptions of you are. Being an early stage founder of color, being a woman of any color, is really, really difficult in the early stage investment world. It just is. Like, we can pretend otherwise, but it just is. And part of that is there's a bunch of reasons for that, but it's not only that there's not enough people allocating capital who look like us or come from our communities or care about people from our communities and are doing the work to have that extra level of empathy and insight. Not because they're nice people, but because they understand that there's a business opportunity to serve the tens of millions of Americans and billions of people around the world who are of color, and that entrepreneurs who are of color may have insights into those markets that other folks don't. So there's a business opportunity, but not everyone can see it. And sometimes people's brain freezes up when you do a pitch to a venture capitalist, and you can kind of see them kind of mentally and psychologically shut down. And it doesn't really matter what you do or say at that point. They're just unable to hear you.
Yep.
But what are the things what are the mechanisms and tactics that we can learn of how to kind of break through and really seek to find those connections with like-minded people or people who share your values and are interested in the business opportunity. So one of the things that I always talk about, and I could talk about this for days, but I always tell newer founders of color and women who are coming into fundraising and they email me and say, what should they be thinking about? One, you want to look for investors who have a history of engaging people of color and women equitably before they met you. You don't want to be the first. There's lots of times where you do want to be the first, but in terms of venture capital fundraising, in my experience, you really want to find people who've made a prior commitment to colleagues, employees, their philanthropic work, their personal hobbies and pursuits that cause them to come into constant contact with diverse communities with a focus on equity and being collaborative. And so I really do look for those people. Those are the people who will be able to hear you. That's who you should focus on. Now, you should talk to everybody, is what I tell these founders, but the rest of these folks is just practice to sharpen your skills, to get some questions and practice your answers. But then when it comes time to meet with somebody who has a prior track record of engaging with folks from a diverse community, that's where you really want to dig in. And the last thing I like to remind people of, fundraising for everybody, it's almost like a marriage in some ways. You got to go around and date some people. Some people do a good job of that. Some people don't. But you're really looking for a long-term partner who, as an investor, may be with you for 5, 10, 15 years on your board, but certainly as an owner of this company that you're building. And you don't want to just open up that relationship and that part of yourself and part of the company to just anybody. You really want to find somebody who shares your values just as you would in your personal life and other professional pursuits. So, that does kind of narrow the universe of people that you can kind of talk to, but that's the reality of what it means to fundraise
Wow.
as a person of color in this day and age. That's kind of where it is. Hopefully that's going to change soon. Hopefully, because of the great work that you all are doing at Microsoft, paving a way for founders like me, like us, to have an opportunity. If we do well and we go public and IPO and create some wealth, then we'll be able to reinvest some of that wealth in the next generation of women and founders of color. That's how the game goes. And so we're in this process where Microsoft and others have started to place these early bets on us. We need to now carry the baton to the next level and do well and be successful, and then not take that wealth and disappear. We need to reinvest that money in the next generation. And my understanding is that's how the technology investment world actually works.
Really appreciate you taking the time to share that perspective with us. That is quite insightful. My second to last question is really around AI. And I read, and my understanding is that BlocPower has invested in an AI model for every building, has built an AI model for every building in America, which seems incredible to me. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you did that, what you're doing, and what impact it will potentially have on emissions and on climate change?
Well, this is one of the reasons we're so excited to be partners with Microsoft, because you all are leading the AI revolution across the entire world. And we are just learning so much from being in partnership with you all. So we said part of the breakthrough is, we now have these large language models. Well, what if we had a large infrastructure model? Large language model, you can talk to it. It's going to make recommendations as to what the next couple words in a sentence should be. You ask it a question, it reads it and makes a recommendation around the answers based on that model of the entire language across all of the data from all the internet. So what if you had a map of all of the infrastructure in a city or in a state or in a country, and you could talk to that infrastructure map and ask it questions or ask it to make recommendation. So we wanted to build an AI model that would say, all right, well, Darryl's family's house in Louisiana, what kind of fossil fuel energy system does it have now? What kind of climate zone is the home located in Louisiana? And really, the question is, what kind of recommendations to convert that specific home to clean energy should be made? How big should the solar panels be? Should they be German solar panels or Chinese or American? What kind of inverter would we need to have? What size hot water system replacement will we need to have? How much is all that going to cost? Do we need to run new electric wires up and down the home in order to support all of this new electric hardware? What do we know about this home right now
Mm-hmm.
based on government data, mortgage data, property tax data, satellite data, Google Maps, streetcar imagery data? What do we know about this building as a baseline? And then how do we run scenario analyses of the physics of that building and how that building would change and perform if we were to replace all of the fossil fuel equipment with new equipment? So we said that in order to be able to have a shot at greening a whole American city, we certainly would have to have an AI model where you could type in any address of any building in that city, and it would give you a recommendation as to how to take that specific building to net zero. But you needed to be able to do that at a high level of fidelity for every building in the city. And basically, you need to be able to do that for every building in the country. So the national research laboratories that helped to build the atomic bomb and Oppenheimer and back in the day, some of them are working on clean energy today. And so we were able to win a contract to partner with two or three of those laboratories to really aggregate a lot of data on buildings. We were able to get data from Microsoft and some of the open source databases that you guys have shared on buildings. We were able to get some data from Zillow. So we had government data, private sector data, local city government data, federal government data, satellite data, LiDAR data, Google Street Map data, and we combined all of that into this infrastructure model. And then basically we spent 3 years running it through a set of containers in order to compute the thermodynamics of fossil fuel waste and clean energy systems potentially in every single building. And so we've completed that model, and now we are selling that model to cities and counties and states in order to help them plan their city scale decarbonization projects.
I don't know how many times I can use the word wow, but just extraordinary. Which leads me to my last and final question for you, Donnel. And I think about the challenges the world is facing, the planet is facing around climate change and sustainability. And I think about the future of your company and the impact your company is going to have on this journey that we're on. What are you most excited about as you look towards the future?
Well, you're not going to believe it, but I think that a new product that you guys are launching is just going to be a game changer. Darryl, we've been working with our mayor in New York City to train 4,000 young people who are at risk of, they're in street gangs, they're ex-offenders, some of them are locked up in Rikers or their families in Rikers Island. And so as the crime rate started to go up, the mayor said, what are we going to do about this? So part of it was he gave a bunch of money to the NYPD to expand their police presence, but he also decided to invest $400 million in creating job opportunities and training for these young people. And they reached out to us and we said, well, we need a workforce to green all these buildings, right? Like we're not going to teach these young people just to rake leaves. Like we're going to train them how to install solar panels and EV charging. We're going to train them on how to use our AI model so that they can navigate it. And when they pull up to a building that they're going to do some construction on, the AI model gives them recommendations. And so we're very proud of that work. We've trained 4,000 young people in that. And that also is a way that we hope that we can start to use investments in green infrastructure and climate, like the ones that Microsoft is making. How do we also help to solve some of that racial wealth gap or that income inequality gap that we're experiencing too often in too many parts of our country by creating good green jobs? But the jobs that are using AI and AR, augmented reality, so that our AI model can use some of the Microsoft project management and construction management software, and those recommendations can flow from the AI model to individual workers on site on individual clean energy projects as they're moving through that construction site. The AI is moving with them. It's tracking what's going on through the augmented reality. And that integration of green construction, low-income workers who need opportunities and may work twice as hard, augmented reality on the construction site, and artificial intelligence to help guide that construction worker through some of these complicated construction projects. We are incredibly excited about this kind of nexus and the kind of social and environmental, but also financial impact. Construction is one of these industries you build the same way, basically the same way we built it 60, 70 years ago. It hasn't innovated, it hasn't changed. But with the technology informed by AI and some of the models that we're building and others are building, we think that we can innovate in green construction. And that's going to be a really important element of us being able to green cities by the year 2030. How do we do it profitably and efficiently under the guidance of AI, utilizing these kind of augmented reality platforms that you guys have started to develop? And so that's one of the things we're extremely excited about.
That's fantastic. You truly are thinking through and figuring out how to leverage technology to transform not only the journey around decarbonization, but also how you really impact cities and how you impact communities, which is just like a trifecta. I mean, it's just absolutely phenomenal, Donnel. And I'd like to thank you for taking the time to share with us.
Well, I'd like to thank you, Darryl, and your team, because I can't stress enough to be able to find a corporate partner of the size and scale of a Microsoft that is so committed to not only innovating technologically through AI and the other work that you all are doing, but also so committed to climate. But then as a third part, also committed to social justice as an element of the work that you all are doing. Being an entrepreneur sometimes can be a little bit lonely, and you look around and you're like, am I crazy? We're trying to decarbonize a city by when? We only got a couple years before the clock runs out. But to be in a community with you all where we can pick up the phone and talk to different Microsoft execs, and they're like, well, here's what we're seeing in Georgia, and here's what we're seeing in Palo Alto, Donnel, if you consider this, or here's our distinguished AI scientists, and here's how they tweak their model, maybe you can tweak your model. It's a real privilege, and we're really grateful to you guys, but really excited about all the great work that we're going to continue to do together over the next few years. So we're going to get a lot done. So thank you.
Thank you, man. And it's inspiring to hear what you're doing. It's even more inspiring to hear how you're doing it. And I'll say to you, on behalf of Microsoft, we're grateful for the work that you're doing. And we're grateful that we've gotten an opportunity, have an opportunity to invest in it. And we're here to support this effort. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of another episode of The Short Circuit. Please join us next time. Thank you, Donnel.
Thank you.